Quotes. People say them, others listen to them, and throughout the long history of fiction there have been a lot of great ones. Today we'll be tackling the quotes of Haruhi Suzumiya from The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, because I've noticed recently, both among my friend group and outside of it, that a lot of people out there do not like this character, and that just won't do. After taking in so many opinions about her over the last year or so, I've given a lot of thought to why I like Haruhi so much, and I think I finally have my answer. So special thanks to all my friends out there who can't stand this character. You all know who you are, and you're only making me stronger. We're going with the same rules as last time. Quotes will be divided up into 3 categories. You've got the meme squad for all the inside jokes as well as regular ones, the wild cards, which are underappreciated quotes, and the heavy hitters, which are the big iconic ones that you all know and love. A few quick things before we get started. I am going to be discussing spoilers today. I'm also bringing back the desaturation filter because I don't trust this company as far as I can throw it. And finally, make sure you give some thought to your own favorite Haruhi quote while you're watching, because I'll be looking for your input at the end of the video. For now though, I must ask that you all bow down before the one and only Haruhi Suzumiya. She's a spoiled, possibly insane high school student who has the powers of a god. And you don't need to be around her for very long to learn what she's all about.
First off, I'm not interested in ordinary people. But if any of you are aliens, time travelers, or espers, please come see me. That is all.
Leave it to Haruhi to make her first lines in the show her most memorable. It's the classic quote that even those who don't know this show exists have somehow heard before, and it's the initial spark that leads to all the crazy escapades of the SOS Brigade. We're using the more traditional definition for meme here, as it's less of a joke for the internet to enjoy and more so an iconic string of words that always brings your mind back to the show. That isn't where its strengths end either. I think this quote does a perfect job of introducing this character to the viewer. Every other kid stands up to do their little icebreaker, saying, "Hi, I'm Mr. Poopman, my favorite snack is pee-pee, blah blah blah." But then here comes this girl who says she's not interested in anyone in the room unless they have magic powers. There couldn't have been a better way to set the mood, and honestly, I feel like I should be taking notes for if I ever decide to do actual intros. Here, let me run this one by you. Okay, first things first. I'm not interested in boring viewers, but if you're a subscriber, liker, or commenter, then please come see me. Subtle, yeah? And speaking of subtle, one of my favorite things about Haruhi is how well written she is. If you couldn't already tell, she likes doing things her way. In fact, the only person she'll even think of half listening to is our main character, Kyon. Why? Well, the show isn't from her perspective, so it's hard to get a clear picture, but I'd say a good place to start is the fact that she's totally into him, and the way she drops hints is just as bizarre as she is. Take this scene where Kyon is thinking to himself about how much he wants to get his hands on whatever gives Haruhi her boundless energy. She responds to this. By the way, Haruhi can read Kyon's mind, don't think too hard about it, by getting as close as possible and staring right at him.
I charged my glare with a bunch of energy and sent it to you. You probably felt something like your body getting warmer. Maybe you're starting to sweat. You feel it, don't you? You feel it?
So here's some good advice for all of you out there. Whenever you're talking to somebody you like, put your face really close to theirs for no reason, and then ask them if their body temperature is rising. Just be like, "Oh gee, you're probably all hot and bothered now, aren't you?" Who the f does that? Anyways, the reason why I adore this quote is because it's a wonderful example of Kyoto Animation's unmatched attention to detail. Anyone could have given Haruhi the standard "I like you but I don't" attitude around Kyon, but kyoani opted to make things subtle. Let her body language tell the story, and if she does make any moves, have her go about it in an excessively roundabout way, to the point where unless you're looking closely, you probably thought she was just being weird. You know what I mean, stuff like having Mikuru take pictures of Kyon while he's sleeping, and when she gets caught, tell him you're keeping the photos for archival purposes so future generations know how lazy you were. Smooth. It's a testament to just how much kyoani cares about the little things. It reminds me of the afterwords for the most recent Haruhi novel, The Intuition of Haruhi Suzumiya. While sharing his experiences from working with kyoani, Tanagawa mentions that he was politely asked a lot of specific questions, like how does Haruhi smile? And when he saw the color designers hard at work, they were switching between two different potential colors for Haruhi's shoes. Tanagawa wasn't able to see a single difference between the two, but they were worlds apart to the designers. Turns out they have just as much dedication to their craft as I expected, but with scenes like these, that isn't something that's very hard to guess. But I'm getting off track. I'm not talking about kyoani today. Well, I am, but I'm also not. It does say in the credits for this show that Haruhi is officially the ultra director for both seasons, and that's just wonderful. Imagine adapting a fictional character so troublesome and bossy that she appears as a member of your studio staff. But one thing people always seem to forget is the fact that her irrational behavior stems from some very real insecurities.
You know, Kyon, have you ever realized just how insignificant your existence on this planet really is?
Now, some of you know that when I first watched this show, I was not into it at all. I thought it was boring, confusing, and that the only ray of light in sight was Haruhi's wacky shenanigans. By episode 5, I was pretty checked out, and when Haruhi started this monologue, I groaned, thinking, oh great, a contrived sob story that's going to waste even more of my time. But the more I listened, the more a similar sense of dread welled up inside me. Let's not beat around the bush here. These are scary thoughts. She explains the entire process, starting with her going to a baseball game and seeing the stadium packed with thousands of people. After learning that this isn't even 0.25% of the entire population, she came to this conclusion. Everything you do, no matter what it is something that has been or is being done right now somewhere on Earth. It's a tough pill to swallow, and thinking too hard about it can easily lead you down the path of apathy, pessimism, and misery. Haruhi is many things, but these three don't even come close to making that list. She always acts so spontaneously and energetically because deep down, she's terrified of the fact that she may not be as special as she wants to be. I can't express how much this does for her character. It fits so well with her that it doesn't feel like a sad backstory that was placed in there by a writer. It feels like a shocking revelation that was had by a person that still shapes her behavior to this day. But that's enough of this sad stuff. This way of thinking has more holes in it than the computer club president's head with all the things it fails to take into consideration. And we have a funny quote next, so let's turn the lights back on. Here's the thing about Haruhi. She's hilarious. I'm of the opinion that saying something stupid with a straight face is objectively the best form of comedy, and Haruhi knocks so many lines out of the park that it's hard to choose just one.
What do you think you're doing over there?
Isn't it obvious? Breaking and entering.
She's committing a crime and announcing it.
Okay, what were you thinking? Seriously, you gonna make something like her play baseball?
Hey, don't go calling my little sister a something.
If you think getting hit on the head and not waking up excuses you from your duties, you got another thing coming. A duel is a duel from the very moment the word is mentioned. Anything the loser says after that is just an excuse.
Dude, this girl is so fucking funny, she makes me want to merge without looking. After a little thinking, I managed to narrow things down to my favorite quote of the bunch, and I will admit I'm a little biased. See, I make dumb videos on the internet, and a huge part of doing that is writing the script. They take days of planning, writing, and tweaking before they're done. So when I heard that Haruhi was making a movie, something much more complicated than anything I've ever made, I was cautiously optimistic. Remember, she's Little Miss Super Utility Player. She's known around school for being good at basically any activity. But, to my immense amusement, this train derailed before it even left the station.
I was expecting to see a script or at least a treatment by now, but Haruhi said there wasn't gonna be one.
If I wrote it down and it got leaked, it would be the worst thing ever.
Oh, I see. You want to make a movie without a script because you're worried that it will get leaked even though nobody even knows you're making this. I don't have anything to say to that. It's as funny as it is stupid, and it's one of the best sentences that I've ever heard leave her mouth. And speaking of Haruhi being stupid, here's a scene that I'm sure you all saw coming. Turns out being the most fun and energetic person in the room comes at a heavy price. Because the thing is, Haruhi's personality sucks, and nowhere is this more apparent than when she spikes Mikaru's drink to make her act sexier for her movie. And when Kyon scolds her for treating a friend so poorly, she says this.
Know what? This sucks! Miss Asahina is not your toy!
Shut up! It's important to me, and I can treat her like a toy if I want to!
I don't think I need to explain to you how awful this is. You're smart, you can figure it out. Instead, I want to talk about why this scene is so cool. I already mentioned how it perfectly shows off the caveats to Haruhi's way of life, but what fascinates me is the fact that under the right conditions, every character in this scene is getting what they want except for Kyon. Koizumi and Nagato want to go along with whatever Haruhi says. Haruhi wants to do whatever she wants without question. And if Koizumi's theory about Mikuru is anything to believe, then she intentionally upsets Haruhi so that Kyon flocks to her aid, bringing the two of them closer and thus increasing her organization's influence over Haruhi's godlike powers. You could say that's far-fetched, but I'll ask you this. Why do you think Mikuru called in sick that morning when she was feeling perfectly fine? You saw how upset Haruhi got, just saying. It also gives a whole new meaning to Haruhi calling Kyon selfish during this scene. All in all, on top of showing us the worst side of Haruhi, this quote is important because it's a great example of just how deep and interesting the show itself is. By the way, remember just a little bit ago when I said Haruhi's personality sucks? Well, I was only half telling the truth. Right after performing such an unjustifiable act, the school festival begins. Haruhi and Kyon have reconciled, they finished the movie, and every unfortunate soul who watches it is horrified, as expected. Kyon is meandering around checking out all the stuff that's going on, but Haruhi is nowhere to be found. Well, at least if you don't know where to look. I'm sure everybody, including myself, was expecting that Haruhi would attempt to redeem herself in some way for her behavior, and she does. But the way that she does it, I don't think it's something that anyone could have predicted. I really wish I could rewind time and see the look of complete disbelief on my face when I saw Haruhi walk out onto that stage and deliver the best musical performance I've ever seen in a show before. This entire song is our next quote, and there are so many reasons to love this scene. The way the lyrics serve as a message from Haruhi to Kyon, the fact that it's so surprising, especially since they had the balls to stick this right after the movie arc chronologically, and if you're watching the original order, it comes even more out of left field. This makes the parallel between the audience and Kyon grow stronger as your jaws collectively hit the floor. There's the fact that the song itself is fantastic, and its brilliant use of rotoscoping paved the way for shows like K-On! To exist. But the thing I adore the most is the fact that this song is performed by Haruhi. Everything she's done in this show up until this point has been her way or the highway. She has not built herself up as the kind of person who is willing to lift a finger for someone who she isn't extremely close to. And yet, here she is, giving everything she has in a performance that she had nothing to do with, all because she saw somebody who was in need and decided to help them the best she can. Who are you? This only adds to the surprise, but the best part is, despite how jarring her behavior is, it never feels out of character. It's just another side of this awful yet wonderful person that we're just now seeing for ourselves. I wouldn't like Haruhi as much as I do if this episode never happened. It's iconic, it's heartwarming, and it's one of the most memorable things I've ever seen in a piece of media. And speaking of iconic, let's talk about everyone's 8 favorite episodes from this show. I've definitely become a lot more mellow on Endless 8. I can recognize how important and artistically beautiful it is nowadays, but that didn't stop me from feeling an abnormal amount of frustration and anger while searching for this next quote. Let me paint a picture for you. 8 weeks. 8 straight weeks of sitting down to watch this show, and at the end of every episode, you hear this.
I'll see everyone at the club room on Monday.
Every single time.
I'll see you guys at the club room on Monday.
No matter how much you pray.
I'll see you all at the club room on Monday.
No matter how hard you struggle.
I'll see you guys at the club room on Monday, okay?
It comes back to crush your hopes and dreams.
I'll see you guys at the club room on Monday.
And to make you watch everything again.
I'll see you all at the club room room on Monday.
Every single time.
Okay then, see you guys at the club room on Monday.
This sense of agony wells up inside of you. It's the signal that the cycle is about to repeat itself, giving Kyon one last chance to stop it. And if he doesn't, then your dumbass just got tricked into waiting a full week just to watch the same episode again. If you think God Knows was memorable, try talking to someone who has war flashbacks of this scene. But without it, we wouldn't have Nagato's arc and disappearance, so I can more than forgive it. And hey, this quote does an excellent job of putting the viewer in Nagato's shoes, forcing him to watch this scenario play out while being completely powerless to stop it. You could also extend this parallel to Kyon because the show is messing with the audience just like Haruhi messes with him. But that's stepping into talking about the show as a whole again territory, so I'm just gonna go back to Haruhi.
Shut up!
Huh. Tell me how you really feel. This whole writing thing is harder than it looks, you know. The least you could do is be a little patient. By the way, that shut up you just heard is our next quote. Allow me to explain. In the first episode of the show, Kyon manages to be the first classmate who can hold a conversation with Haruhi in, I guess, ever. She even takes the things he has to say to heart, lopping off most of her hair the day after he brings up a criticism for her constantly changing hairstyles. It doesn't sound like much, but for somebody who doesn't even talk to anyone else, that is huge. Now I want you to imagine what it would take for someone you put so much faith into to cause you to tell them to shut up with complete sincerity. For Haruhi, it's telling her that ordinary people are better off living ordinary lives, leaving innovation to those who seek it out of necessity. I like this for the same reason why I like the aliens, time travelers, and espers quote. It's one of the first things you ever hear out of her, and it tells you so much with so little. We haven't heard her story about the baseball stadium yet, so this serves as a perfect introduction to her insecurities. And I'll admit, I'm a little insecure about this last quote myself, as it isn't something that you would normally label as a heavy hitter per se. If you end up walking away from this video with a new appreciation for how complex and well written Haruhi is, then I'll have done my job for today. Too often do I see people demean her for her flaws so harshly that they somehow believe that she's some one-dimensional bad guy. Everything she does is malicious, and any good she puts out into the world is all a part of some evil plan. If this describes the way you see her, I'd first like to say I'm sorry your brain thinks that way. And secondly, I want to explain why I strongly disagree with the help of a quote. After the school festival comes to a close, Kyon finds a frustrated Haruhi underneath a tree, pouting because she can't get the performance out of her head. She's upset because she knows that if she had more time to practice, she would have put on a much better show for everyone. She then asks Kyon to tell her what he's thinking right now because she believes he's holding in a snide remark. And when he replies with "I wasn't thinking anything," she picks up some grass and throws it at him, only to have it blown back in her face. Again, very smooth. That's pretty embarrassing, so how is she going to salvage this conversation? Well, by having another one of her bright ideas, of course.
Hey, do you know how to play any instruments?
I don't.
It doesn't matter, because we got a whole year to practice our butts off for the next arts festival.
Oh, come on.
To me, this rebound is why so many people, including myself, hold Haruhi so dear. You can see the fire in her eyes, the overwhelming optimism and excitement exuding off of her, which is such a special trait to have. Haruhi doesn't make life interesting because of what she does, but because of how and why she does it. Everything is always so high energy and over the top, because despite being such a pain in the ass, this girl is a genuine ray of sunshine, and a fantastic example of how a little excitement can make every day feel like it's special. I don't know about any of you, but I think that's more than enough to deem this quote worthy of its spot.
Next year will be super busy. After all, our goal each year should be to increase the number of goals we set for ourselves.
Hold on.
Come on, Kyon, let's get moving.
Now, I'm sure you've already guessed this, but my favorite quote this time around is one of the heavy hitters. I could honestly go either way between God Knows and Haruhi's conversation with Kyon under the tree. Both of these quotes show off the way Haruhi brings so much life to such simple activities, which in my opinion is the best thing about her character. But after doing some thinking, I'm going to give the slight edge to God Knows. Staying power is the main reason for this decision, because as much as I love this conversation conversation, I will never remember it as vividly as I do this performance. Take a look at it this way. While doing research on what other people think Haruhi's best quotes are, I didn't see this conversation brought up once. Despite it being filled to the brim with borderline words to live by, this seems like the kind of thing that's only special to me. Meanwhile, this scene has over 107 million views on YouTube. In a shoving match between two equal forces, I figured it would be best to pick the more memorable and iconic of the two. But those are just my thoughts. Let's see Paul Allen's favorite quote. Last time I opened the floodgates and let you all vote on your favorite Nagisa Furukawa quote. And I want to thank all 65 of you who responded because I was expecting like 20. In first place, we have the Foot of the Hill quote I chose as my favorite, which claimed 38.5% of the votes. In second place, at 27.7%, we have the You Mustn't Hold Yourself Back over something like that quote. Absolutely fantastic pick. I can see why so many of you went with that. And in third place, we have 8 heroes who voted for We Are Having Sex. I also find it hilarious that 2 of you watched the entirety of both Clanad and that video and walked away thinking Nagisa's best quote is Are you really that interested in mom? Thanks again to everyone who participated. And just like last time, there's a poll in the description where you can vote on your favorite quote from this video. And if you have a favorite that I didn't discuss, there's an other option in there as well. You'll have to let me know about that one in the comments. Speaking of which, I got a comment, recently that tagged me for this small YouTuber tag thingy, so why not? I don't have the reach to actually help anybody out, but there is a guy who I think deserves to be much larger than he is right now. He goes by Nameless Notes, and he creates fantastic piano covers of a ton of different songs, mostly from the Persona series. He's also made some great compilation videos of game soundtracks with ambience in the background, which if you didn't know is the perfect thing to have on while you're getting work done. He's achieved the impossible by making the Persona 5 anime tolerable to watch, and after talking to the guy while running a few Guilty Gear sets, I can confirm that he's a pretty cool dude to boot. By the way, my Potemkin has gotten much better. I hope you're scared. So go check him out if you're interested. Tell him I sent you, or don't, because that's kind of embarrassing. I don't know, your choice. And yeah, poll in the description. Haruhi rocks. See you all next time.